Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. We'll talk about a new transfer rule with the NCAA. And to break it down for us is Andrew Doak of Channel 4 Sports. Remember now we are also live streaming on the WLAE-TV YouTube page. That's every single Thursday at 1 p.m. as we go live here at the Pontchartrain Production Studios. Andrew, welcome back to the show. Good to see you again, my friend. It's been a while.
I know.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on over at Channel 4.
Well, we've been just getting ready for the NFL draft. We've been doing different profiles of players. Got to chat with Puka Williams. Honestly, he played at Hahnville, obviously, but one of the most explosive players I've seen in the past decade in New Orleans high school sports.
Yes.
Just electric every time he touches the ball. We've been preparing for the Zurich, too. That's one of my favorite weeks of the year. And the good thing this year, too, is that it's not going to be conflicting with the NFL draft.
Right.
They're 2 different weeks. Normally, whenever the Zurich's in town, we're having to split our time mostly towards the draft. This year, we're going to be able to cover it all. So I went out to TPC the other day, and it looks gorgeous out there. I know hopefully this rain clears up.
Well, it looks like it is. Like next week's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
It really does. And to your point, it's been tough. And look, nobody wants to hear about the sports media, right? But it is a tough weekend. You know, with the sports media to be having to go back and forth from the draft to the Zurich. Yeah. Okay, and then, you know, some guys want to sneak off to the Jazz Fest as well, right?
Right.
Which is almost impossible.
Yeah.
You know, so this year, obviously, Jazz Fest moves to the spring. Zurich is now not going to conflict with the NFL draft. So, again, good all around for those in the sports media in New Orleans.
This upcoming fall, I think, is going to be crazy
It
with
is.
all the different things that we have on the schedule.
There's no doubt.
It should be fun.
Well, you brought it up. Let's start there because, again, there's been some changes out at the TPC. Talk a bit about it. You did a great job of kind of explaining that in a story you did on Channel 4 this week. Talk a bit about some of the changes.
They basically did a $2 million renovation in that neighborhood after the 2019 tournament. They, for about 6 months, they ripped up all the grass out of TPC, Louisiana, and returfed the entire course. So all the grass when I was out there the other day, I mean, it looks incredible. They went with the fairways and the greens without getting too nerdy on you. That basically, they have it both Bay Hill, where they play the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and then also TPC Sawgrass, where they play the Players Championship. And those are 2 of the favorite tour venues anywhere on the PGA Tour. So I think TPC Louisiana did a great job being able to follow that type of model and methodology. I think that's great. And look, after the Masters, there was 6 of the top 11 finishers that were already committed.
Yes.
Then earlier this week, we also got Justin Rose, who's going to be coming out. He's one of the Zurich partners, so we kind of expected that to be happening. So I think it's going to be a stacked field out there. And I've always felt like it's like an all-star week. I know a lot of those players do like being able to jump between, whether some of them like Ryan Palmer going over to the Saints facility because he's friends with Sean Payton, also like going over to Jazz Fest. Obviously, that's not happening this year, but I think a lot of people love New Orleans and the experience of going downtown, going to the city, going to restaurants as much as they do the tournament. And it's just a loose feel and a nice breakup in the major schedule where you get to do a team event, and it's just kind of fun.
Well, and that's the other thing. Look, when they first came up with the concept, I was like, it's been a regular tournament stop for since the 30s.
Right.
And now you're going to change to this team format. Again, it's kind of how's that going to work? But the players have embraced it.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah, and I think it's a selling point for all of these players coming back that, listen, we in 2020, the Zurich was going to have this brand new, I mean, it's not a totally new course, but the turf is all new, and it looks impeccable. I was out there the other day, too, and the build is pretty much all the way done behind the 18th green, behind the 9th green. They're going to have 10,000 fans there per day. But from a player standpoint, and I bet Steve Worthy would agree, the last thing that you want a player to feel like is if they miss a putt and it's not because they read it wrong, it's because the green wasn't in tip-top shape or a fairway wasn't in tip-top shape. It was going on, it was 16 years since they had flipped and put new turf on that new facility. And I think it's taken it to the next level. I know there have been times in the past where TPC is one of those venues that it hasn't been as popular as other tour events. And you're trying to change that mindset and tell people we're putting a lot of money into this golf course, making it a really fun event, and I think they're doing a good job with that right now.
Well, again, a lot of times when we get new courses, they got to mature over time, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
but you're also making changes based on what the players' feedback they're giving you each and every year as they come to the tournament as well.
And to my understanding, I think Steve Worthy and the 4Kids Foundation and everybody over at TPC Louisiana, they want to provide the best field that they can. Steve Worthy's out there recruiting these guys, so any type of feedback that they get, I'm sure they're implementing as best they can to make it a better experience for everybody.
And not having it the week after the Masters also is good.
I think so,
Because a lot of guys want to just take a break, they want to get away, or they don't want to have to deal with it, and that little break there also gives the guys an opportunity to say, you know what, I'll go play in this team tournament before we get right back on tour as well.
No doubt. I think that's why we've seen some more commitments rolling in this week, because not only do you have a couple-week break from the Masters, but I think it was going to take people a little bit longer to commit just because all of their focus was on the Masters.
Yes.
And now that it's over, they can spend a little bit more attention preparing what I want to do next. How does this fit into my schedule? And this is also, people forget, but we were going to have the Olympics last year. This is also an Olympic year now that they pushed it back a year. So that is a part of players' schedules this year. The major schedule is a little bit more condensed because we had the last Masters was 5 months ago, and now we're already starting the next schedule of major tournaments. So that does make everyone's schedule a little bit more condensed than normal.
But the players like it because they get a chance to be able to team up with a college teammate, a buddy, whatever, and it's something they can talk about all year long and kind of point to this. And then, of course, you get into these little rivalries now that we've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I know Brooks Koepka, at least not that we've seen so far. He also had knee surgery. I don't think he's going to be here for the event. But we have seen him in the past. He teamed up with his brother, Chase Koepka. John Rahm and Ryan Palmer, kind of an interesting pairing how they really even got together. But the two of them were doing like Skittles for birdies the last time that they played out there. So, yeah, it's really interesting to see who people pick because it's not just based on your friend, but also kind of, whose game matches my game as well as the friendship.
So
and
the little strategy to it as well.
Yeah, so there's some strategy to it. Yeah,
no doubt. Good for the TPC of Louisiana, the freshening up of that course, and good for the tournament as well, and great for the city.
I agree.
Okay, because again, this
100%.
is look, this is a major city, and we need a PGA Tour stop. And there's been a lot of talk about this thing maybe moving to City Park. Maybe again, we will see how that kind of plays out down the line here.
And I would say, if you've never been to a PGA Tour event, go to it. Even if you're not a fan of golf, I'm telling you, the atmosphere it's hard to describe, but it's like a party.
Oh, it
People
is.
are watching, and it's not just in New Orleans. It's everywhere across the country. I even tell like some of my girlfriends that don't really like golf, like, trust me, you will like this. And every time that I've taken people out to a PGA Tour event, they're like, wow, I had no idea that it was this much fun.
Well, and especially here, right? I mean, it started a while back with, again, the bands after the 18th hole.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that kind of caught on in other cities as well.
Right.
I mean, New Orleans, just, again, we know how to put on an event. And they do a great job of that. Look, between the opportunity to have the great New Orleans food, the cocktails, everything else that's going on, all the golf, and being outside, it's a great experience.
Get some sun, get a cocktail, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, they have some live music later.
Yeah, it's awesome. It really is.
Sign me up.
And look, we've done it. Well, once again, look, I talked about this on the radio show the other day. I remember when Houston got the Super Bowl. This was before Katrina, and they manufactured a Bourbon Street, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have one.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, again, we went with the music and everything here. Now again, you look around, other PGA Tour stops are doing the same thing.
Doing the same thing.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So again, just something that again we added to the PGA Tour stops for everybody to enjoy.
No question.
Let's jump into some Saints.
Yeah.
Huge draft.
Yeah,
this has got to be, and again, I've been talking about it a lot. And Andrew, I watched what you guys do on Channel 4. I know you would agree. This has got to be like a 2017 draft for this team, with all the holes they have to fill now because of free agency. And I want to bring this up to you before we kind of get into it. I was really surprised that the Saints did not re-sign Ryan Ramczyk. Okay, because again, he's going to get paid as one of the top tackles in the NFL. That would have freed up some money to be able to keep some of these veterans that ended up moving on because of, again, cap constraints. But before
you're just talking about the fifth-year option.
I'm just talking about they got the fifth-year option, sign them to a long-term deal, reduce that base salary, amortize that signing bonus over the next few years. So you're not paying him almost $11 million this year. You're not paying Lattimore almost almost $10.5 million this year. You're in a situation right now which is $10.4 million for Marcus Williams. So you could have saved around $23 million up front that you're giving these guys for 1 year by, again, re-signing them, and then possibly held on to a guy like a Malcolm Brown, to some other players that were either quality depth players or guys that again, were starters on this team. Look, the Saints let Malcolm Brown go, $5 million a year. He re-signed, he gets traded to Jacksonville. They re-signed him again for 3 more years.
Right.
Immediately. Again, showing you again, this is a coveted player. If that would have happened, I don't think there would have been that much more of an emphasis on this draft now. But because it didn't happen, I think, again, you have to have a situation where you have a 2017 draft where guys, you can come in, plug and play them immediately in positions of need, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the Saints, I don't know if I want to put that much pressure on myself walking in knowing that we have to have a 2017 type draft, because when you think of all the players that they were able to draft between Lattimore, Ramczyk, Kamara, Marcus Williams, I mean, it's unbelievable. That's one that you literally, it comes out perfectly. That's what you script up,
Remember,
right?
they had two first-round picks that year.
2 first-round picks that year.
Right.
So, and who knows if Marshawn Lattimore would have even been here had Kansas City not scooped up Patrick Mahomes early.
It would have been a whole different.
It would have been a whole
different
different direction.
Right.
I think this is just one of those years where you're right. You do have to hit on these draft picks. I think, in my personal opinion, you got to go with a corner if it's there, or a linebacker. Look, you go with Janoris Jenkins. Marshawn Lattimore, we're uncertain about if the league's going to have some discipline. I'm sure they are.
I got to believe 1 or 2 game suspension at least.
At least. So because of the weapon issue that he had back home. So that's one that I don't know if J.C. Horn, and I know a lot of people would like to see Joe Horn's son here in New Orleans. I don't know if he's going to be there, but I know Asante Samuel out of Florida State is another name we've heard. I've also heard Zaven Collins, the linebacker out of Tulsa, is another big name. And I didn't realize until Quan Alexander came here and replaced Alex Anzalone how much of a difference at linebacker that made. So I think those are probably the 2 biggest areas that you need to address first. Then probably get to the defensive line in the 3rd tier, and then just add some more quality depth. Maybe they go after a quarterback in one of the late rounds. I'm not sure. I think them going after Kyle Trask, the quarterback out of Florida, I think that was a bit of a smokescreen, but you never know.
Right.
They did pay Jameis Winston backup quarterback money.
True.
And I still think someone like Taysom Hill is getting backup quarterback type money. So I don't think that they're tied down to those guys. I think they still, Nick Underhill, when I was chatting with him of New Orleans Football the other day, he said, if you're the Saints, you got to have wondering eyes. And I think that's at the quarterback spot. And I think you got to. But, yeah, I think they have a lot of needs in this draft coming up that they have to address pretty quickly. And you really hope that you hit on them because they got to come in and, if not be starters, contribute big snaps for you.
I agree. I think they're going to be aggressive. They've been aggressive in the past. They need a plug-and-play corner.
Yeah.
Again, look, maybe they're able to pick one up through a trade, possibly. Okay. Maybe again there'll be some teams out there that may let a veteran go after the draft as they get into training camp. But again, that's a roll of the dice. You need a guy that you can plug and play right now at cornerback. So I would not be surprised, again, with the draft capital they now have, with the additional compensatory picks that we're saying now, that this team does not utilize that. And even going to next year's draft, if necessary, to move up to get the corner that they covet, whether that be Surtain, whether that be J.C. Horn, whoever it's going to be. And then, look, if it's at 28 and they stand pat, I don't see them going for the third or fourth best corner or the fourth best linebacker. At that point, then you're either going to trade back or you're going to try to get the best player available. But to me, I think it's got to be corner, it's got to be linebacker, but corner in the first round where you're moving up and possibly getting one of those top corners.
What's your expectation for this upcoming year? Like, are you Super Bowl or bust still? Do you think that's still?
I don't think that's realistic.
No.
I mean, I don't. I think when you had Breeze at quarterback, that was realistic. I think there's so much unknown at the most critical position on the team right now.
Yeah.
Maybe Jameis Winston comes in and he's not a guy that's had 111 turnovers in 5 years, and he's a game manager and he's taking care of the football, and this team picks up right where they left off with Breeze. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's a Taysom Hill. It's a whole different dynamic in terms of that, the offense. But more than likely, I think there's going to be some growing pains here with the offense with Winston. And I think people need to go look at the depth chart. They lost quality depth on the defensive the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean, between Malcolm Brown. You also lost Sheldon Rankins.
Right.
He was someone who, when he was healthy, he was a stud.
Yes.
And I think you also have to think down the line too with somebody like Cam Jordan. I mean, how much of Cam Jordan? He dropped to 7.5 sacks this year. He's going to be 32 this upcoming season. He's been one of your most efficient players. But going and getting Tano Passanio, I mean, is that part of the thinking, just to add some more depth, not only for Cam Jordan, but also you're uncertain about some of your other edge pass rushers.
I like Carl
Davenport,
Granderson. I like Granderson. I think that Granderson is going to be the guy this year that's going to be the Trey Hendrickson that we saw last year.
I could see that.
Okay, I really do. Davenport, he is strictly his back is against the wall this year. To be able to again produce.
Yeah.
Because of the investment they made in him, and they need him now.
Yeah.
With Hendrickson moving on. But I've watched Granderson over the last couple of years. The Saints obviously covered him to go through everything they went through to be able to bring him in, even though again his issues with the law as he got out of college. But he seems like a guy that can take the next leap as far as the defensive end. My concern is the defensive tackle position and the depth there, especially at nose tackle, where again you've got two guys that are undrafted free agents that you brought in that have played well for you, but how are they going to play when they are the guy?
When they're the guy, I know. And that run defense has been so good for them
over the
past several years. But
it sets the table for everything else.
It sets the table for everything else. I guess I asked you that question, though, about Super Bowl or bust, because I'm sure that the Saints are going into this season, and Sean Payton, I imagine, still has the thinking that they think they can win a Super Bowl championship.
Sure they do.
But if you're doubting that at all, how much of your future draft capital are you willing to give away to still make that push if you aren't 100% sure whether or not Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, and I'm leaning towards Jameis Winston being the starter right now, that's just my opinion, but if you have any doubt at all whether or not they're going to be able to lead you all the way, and I'm just not sure right now either. So,
but you need a starting corner.
You need a starting corner.
I mean, there's no other way around it.
And I don't know at 28 if you're going to be able to get someone who's a top
Not unless
corner.
A guy like, was it Caleb Farley? Who had a lot of injuries and is projected to be a guy that can be a shutdown corner for you. He's sitting out the year. Maybe, again, he falls to you at 28. You're saying to yourself, okay, there's a chance there. But
I mean, I think the top corner, I think it was last year, A.J. Terrell, the one out of Clemson. I think he went like 9th overall or something like that.
No, you're going to have to move up. There's no doubt.
Corner's a tough position if you need one. You probably have to make a move to be in the top 15 at least.
Andrew, I think what you're hoping for is that there's a run on quarterbacks.
Yes, yeah.
There's a run on wide receivers, a position that's very, very deep. That's going to go into second, third rounds, et cetera, where you're going to be able to get guys maybe I get guys in the third, fourth round that can come in and play for you. But that you get a run on positions that are not critical positions for the Saints, which are like linebacker, cornerback. And I think some of these guys kind of fall back, so it's a little bit easier for you to move up, and you're not giving up as much draft capital. But again, what are you going to go into the season with this point? P.J. Williams on the outside? No, you're not.
I hope not.
Okay, you're not. You're just not. What is it, Patrick Robinson?
Because if you have P.J. Williams and Patrick Robinson, that could be real dangerous.
And then remember, again, as we just said, you can anticipate at least a one-game suspension. I do believe that Lattimore is going to plead this down. He's never been in trouble in his past. More than likely, Ohio, they're going to plead it down to a probably community service. But the NFL doesn't care. They're going to suspend him, okay, and probably fine him. So you might start the season off with, again, your starting corner, the guy that's your shutdown corner on the sidelines, and maybe a rookie starting at the other side. So, not just one corner, you need multiple corners.
Yeah, when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to any legal ramifications with gun possession or anything like that's a slippery slope. I think behind closed doors, when it comes to some of the marijuana stuff and whatnot, they're more lenient with that, and I don't expect as many suspensions to come down. But yeah, I would expect Marshawn Lattimore to have at least a game or so.
Let's talk a little bit about the quarterback position. You mentioned Jameis Winston. He said, I listened to the Huddle and Flow podcast a couple weeks ago, and again, was really impressed with everything he's had to say. Impressed with everything he's done up to this point, as far as, the understudy to Breeze last year, humbling himself in a lot of cases, a guy that was a starter, a former Heisman Trophy winner, and now coming in and going to compete for the starting job. Give me your thoughts on Winston and what's your anticipation of him this year?
I think that he is someone who has the ability to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Just a couple years ago, he led the league in passing, and some of that has to do with the fact that they were trailing in a lot of games, they're having to come back, there's a lot of turnovers, but he had over 5,000 yards passing, and he also had more than 30 touchdown passes. I realize he had the 30 interceptions, but his upside is elite talent. That's also why I think that he's going to be, in my opinion, the starter going into this season. I just think he brings more to the table and more experience than somebody like Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill was, given the timing of Bree's injury last year, he was someone they could pivot and do more with in a short amount of time.
Yes.
And I think Winston didn't have all of the Saints offense down because it's 15 years of Breeze and Peyton that he has to learn, and doing it in that amount of time during a COVID season is just,
I agree.
It's not possible. But I do think that I'm so excited to see how the Saints offense evolves with somebody like Sean Payton. I think with someone like Winston, I think Sean Payton's offense is going to be more Drew Brees in the 2012, 11, 13 era where he could actually still push it downfield.
Yes.
We saw over the past few years, he couldn't push the ball downfield. His timing had to be better than it ever was. And that's why someone like Emmanuel Sanders, you didn't see him run very many downfield routes.
True.
And how does that evolve with somebody like Mike Thomas? I mean, we've seen Mike Thomas throughout Brees' career here. He's been more of an intermediate guy, and I still think that that's his wheelhouse.
Right.
I don't think that will change too much, but I think some of the different passing concepts that you have with somebody like Winston and maybe even somebody like Deontay Harris can change what you do downfield. And so I anticipate, I still think his turnovers are going to be higher than what you saw with Brees over the last few years. But if he can keep it somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 interceptions, I think people could live with that. And I think you could still be someone who could have a win total around 11, 12 games maybe if you only have about 15 turnovers or 15 interceptions rather, and you're in the 30 touchdown neighborhood.
Yeah. people tend to forget Breeze was a gunslinger when he first got here.
And he had a lot of turnovers, too.
He did.
He didn't cut that down till later.
Exactly. He didn't cut it down till later in his career. Again, not willing to take maybe chance with the ball. What was it? Live to play another day. That was his mantra at that point. Wasn't like that when he first got here.
No.
Okay. I mean, again, and even though, again, he was a guy that got the Saints out of a lot of tough positions and won a lot of games at the end, he put them in a lot of bad positions as well, with again turnovers. Again, people forget that.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a maturation process with Winston inside this offense, as you mentioned, because it was built for Breeze by Peyton and Breeze, and now they're going to have to change that up to be able to deal with Winston. Last week I brought up Teddy Bridgewater on this program, and the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because Peyton continues to still talk about Teddy Bridgewater, okay? In the interviews, he did one with Monday Morning Quarterback with Albert Breer. He mentioned Bridgewater there. He's mentioned him before. Bridgewater, again, $17 million this year, $20 million next year if traded, okay? The Saints are not paying them that.
Yeah.
If ultimately he is cut by the Carolina Panthers, and that's an anticipation, he's going to be traded or cut, is he a guy you think the Saints would take a flyer on to bring in to compete with a Jameis Winston and a Taysom Hill?
I 100% do. I think they kick the tires everywhere, and financially, if they can come to an agreement that works for them where they can stay under the salary cap, I don't see why not, because I think having multiple options this year would be a great thing. And I also think for somebody like Jameis Winston, having somebody who he has to compete with that is going to push him, I think is going to be big in his development here with the Saints. I think that was something he didn't have when he was in Tampa Bay. I think it was still, Ryan Griffin, who's still there, I think that was his backup while he was there. And dealt with Fitzpatrick a little bit too, but he didn't have someone to push him all the time. And look, this scenario, even though I think he's going to eventually get the starting job to start the season, this job is up for grabs right now. It is not his at all. He's not walking into a scenario where he's the guy. This is, you got to go prove it, and we're going to hopefully have a more normal off season and training camp leading up, we hope, but you're gonna have to make the most of your opportunities, I think, for sure.
I don't want to disrespect or downplay Taysom Hill, okay, in any form or fashion. I'm just of the opinion he is more valuable to this team as a jack of all trades. I think you take away a weapon ultimately if you put him at the quarterback position and let him play quarterback, where again you can utilize him in so many ways and also still utilize him again throwing the football maybe out of again a halfback position or again lining up in the backfield, coming around as a wide receiver. He can also play tight end. The multiple position thing again makes him to me more valuable as a jack of all trades than your quarterback.
I would agree with you, and I think we've seen teams around the league, they've copied what Sean Payton has done with Taysom Hill with different guys. He's just someone who is so versatile, can do so many things, and every position that you line him up on, whether it's on special teams or even on the offense for the Saints, I mean, he's making plays, he's scoring touchdowns. I think you'd be taking a weapon away from the Saints offense if you're having him at quarterback, and I just don't, I thought that while he played well, what was it, 4 games last year for the Saints? He was 3-1. I never felt like they won a game because of him. Yeah. Which I feel like with Jameis Winston, you will feel that way. Now, you might also feel like you lose some games because of him, but I never felt during that span like they won it. It was the same feeling that I got with Teddy Bridgewater. I never felt like they won a game because of Teddy Bridgewater. He did a great job managing the game, and I thought he did a great job being able to do enough for them to be able to win. But a lot of those games you were asking them to lean on the defense and get a couple turnovers for us, maybe make a special teams play Deontay Harris, and then walk away with the win. And the one game in Philadelphia, nobody was doing that, and you didn't really see Taysom Hill be able to lift the team to a different level, a different stratosphere.
True. I have cornerback, linebacker, defensive tackle, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, quarterback as the needs in this draft. Would you agree or would you add?
I would agree. And, I think just you got to take it step by step. I think corner or linebacker are the first two that they need to go after, and then defensive tackle right after that. But if they make a run on corners early and you're saying we're sticking at 28 and we're not moving, we're not giving up draft capital, then just go with the best linebacker or best defensive tackle that's there at the time and get somebody later on. And maybe you try to make a trade and get somebody who's a little bit more proven in free agency. But I think that's the best way that you can go about it right now.
It's going to be interesting to see again how this plays out going forward. I do believe there is some pressure this year without Breeze here, anticipation on what could be on hitting on this draft because of the losses that we've seen in free agency, and which again was a byproduct of the salary cap.
Yeah.
And of course of COVID-19. Again, I still believe if COVID-19 is not affecting the NFL in terms of the salary cap, the Saints already have a plan. They're probably not going to be hit as hard as they were in terms of their losses. And again, that's why I go back to my original point. You sign Ramczyk to a long-term deal, which you're going to do anyway. You probably have more money to keep some of those players on this team that were glue guys for you. Maybe not, starters like Jack Rabbit, but guys that Sheldon Rankins, guys that were really good players for you that you could count on, even from depth or again the start at times.
Fair, yeah. And some of the cap logistics, I read them time and time again, and it's almost just like I don't know how Mickey Loomis does some of the aerobics that he does. But you're right. I think anytime that you can sign some of these guys to a long-term deal, in COVID, I think threw a wrench in everything, especially when you're kicking the can down the road the way that the Saints have been. It's just been something everybody's kind of had to deal with right now. And every plan that they had before 2020, you're having to make a new plan.
Right, no doubt about it. Andrew Doak, Channel 4 Sports, is with us. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll take a break, hear from our underwriters. We come back, we'll jump into some Pelicans, then we'll jump into the college game. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Andrew Doak of WLAE-TV Sports is our guest. We switched to the Pelicans. They're 25-30. They're 11th in the West right now. They're 2 games out of the 10th spot. San Antonio has moved into that spot as Golden State moves up to the 9th spot. After being healthy all season long, now they're dealing with a lot of rash of injuries. There's 17 games left before the playoff race. In the month of April, there are 5 road games left, 3 home games. In the month of May, 6 road games left, 3 home games. So again, just about 6 more games at home for the Pels, and then 11 on the road for the Pelicans. You know, it's interesting. Last night they lose 116-106 to the Knicks at home. Julius Randle, a guy that really couldn't shoot well in Los Angeles.
Always come back and play better.
Well, and of course, it goes to show you, if you want to learn how to shoot, you join the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
Because they have done a great job with. If you go right down the line on players that they have corrected their shot, and Randle was one of them. Randle is a bona fide three-point shooter now, and of course is kind of the anchor, the star for that team in New York. But the thing that struck me last night was 2 coaches that are very, very similar. In Thibodeau and Stan Van Gundy. Both guys, defensive guys.
Yeah.
And both guys, again, defense is job one for any team they're on. The biggest difference I saw between the 2 teams is the Knicks have veterans and the Pelicans still have very, very young players. You got guys last night that playing defense for the Knicks, understand the defensive concepts, understand team defense, put up a wall for Zion, made it very, very difficult for him to be able to score inside. You saw how they dealt with pick and roll switches, and then you look on the other side, or even again, making sure that you're guarding against the three-point shot. You flip it to the other side with the Pelicans, and you're seeing a very, very young team in a lot of cases that really doesn't know how to play defense on the NBA level with, again, a defensive-minded coach who hasn't had a lot of time because of COVID to practice and teach, whereas Thibodeau brings in veteran guys who have been cast off to other teams who understand defensive concepts. And you saw the difference last night, and it was a 10-point difference in the score. But teams that mirror each other, but again, the difference in youth and experience really showed up last night.
And you ran out of shooting too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
They couldn't shoot that much, and you're dealing with, they're having to bring in Najee Marshall, James Johnson, and some of those guys have played pretty good minutes.
Right.
Pretty good minutes, to be honest with you, for the Pelicans. Najee Marshall just a couple games ago. I mean, he got the game ball after the game.
Right.
He was their MVP of the game, Stan Van Gundy said. I don't know what it is about the injuries with the Pelicans. I know Aaron Nelson has come in. He's highly touted as one of the best, best team doctors and whatnot, and physical therapists like in the NBA as far as players' health is concerned. But yeah, I think they just got to be focused on the 10 spot right now. Just get to the 10 spot. Maybe Josh Hart can come back.
Yes.
From his UCL, kind of sounded like a similar injury to Drew Brees.
It's the Drew Brees injury, right?
Nikhil Alexander-Walker was playing so well before he got hurt. Right. And I know he, made some plays down the stretch in some of those games where he gave some games away and whatnot, and he had some growing pains. But, I mean, he had over 30 in one game. I mean, he was the type of shooting that you need.
Yes.
And Kira Lewis is still so young. The concerning thing to me has really been Eric Bledsoe. Some of his shot selection, I just don't understand it. Just bad shots. He's not a great shooter to begin with. His defense hasn't been what it used to be.
True.
There was one sequence in the first quarter yesterday where he just, I don't know if he thought there was some switch that was supposed to happen, but he just completely left his man and got scored on. So yeah, the tough part of having all these new guys come in is they're playing in rotations that they've never played in before. And they don't have any continuity or trust with any of these guys that they're playing defense with, because some of these guys are just learning a defense that they just picked up a couple weeks back.
Yes.
And on top of that, they're playing with somebody that they've never played with more than 10 games. So it's just not a great combination right now, and you hope it gets better as it goes along. But yeah, it feels like anytime that these players come back that left the Pelicans, they just light them up for big games. Right. The list goes on, but Julius Randle was pretty good last night. I think he was 5 for 8 from 3.
Yeah.
And had 32 points.
Right.
So,
well, Zion didn't help with the WLAE defense either. I mean, I give him credit for trying to get out there, but there's a big difference in the NBA between going out there and throwing your hand up and defending a guy at the three-point line. Right. And that's what a lot of these young players don't understand yet. You see the effort of running out there, but that's not, you give a guy space in the NBA, especially now, they're knocking down shots. They just are. I mean, it's the way it is. You either gotta again play defense to keep the ball out of their hands, or again you gotta be. I mean, let's go back to Drew Holiday, how he played defense here. Yeah. That's the way kind of defense you have to play. I will say this. It is interesting again to see how this trade kind of worked out with J.J. Redick and Nico Melli going to Houston, James Johnson and Awandu coming over to New Orleans, and the impact that Johnson has made on this team immediately as a veteran, as a gritty defensive player. Then they bring up, as you mentioned, Najee Marshall was a two-way player for the G League. How much he has played now, played well with the injuries. Now look. Johnson is making $16 million. He's in the last year of his deal. There's no way the Pelicans are paying him $60 million next year to come back and play here. Maybe again he tags on with another team. We'll see how that plays out. But at least now you're seeing with these injuries, and this is a league-wide problem now, right? 72 games in a condensed season. We're seeing, the Lakers are hit with injuries. Across the league, we're getting hit with injuries. Pelicans have been injury-free for the most part, but now you're getting a chance to see some of these other players play. And look, yes, you're going for the 10th seed, and I believe you need to make the playoffs, but you're getting a look-see at maybe some players that might be able to help you down the line here as role players for this team going forward.
Yeah. James Johnson off the bench has been pretty incredible. He's kind of I think Antonio Daniels said it best. I think he said it's one of those guys that you go into the YMCA and you don't think he's gonna.
It's the truth.
He's gonna tear you up, and then, man, he's got footwork and agility.
He's just old school.
He's just old school. So, hopefully these guys can help them add some depth. The hope that I have when I've watched the Pelicans, and this is just looking beyond this season, because even if they get into the play-in tournament, I think that all of those games would be meaningful, but I don't think they're going to be able to win it all.
True.
And this is a part of the give and take that I do not like with the NBA today. The problem is everybody's leaving and going and joining these super teams.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to beat any of them unless you're going to be able to draft extremely well and probably even get a little bit lucky. Or become a destination where players want to come and they want to play.
Right.
What we've seen with Zion, and I know Thibodeau and them did pretty good defensively on him last night, but this point Zion that we've seen where he's literally taken over point guard regardless of the circumstance when he's in the game, has opened up a door that I think is, Sam Van Gundy said he thinks is going to be his future in the NBA. I see why, but that's a whole nother stratosphere of what's going to take him to the next level, and also going to, I think, bring players to New Orleans, and that's what they really need. They need players who are going to say, I want to go play with that guy, and I'm joining that team. I think it's kind of, in the NBA, it's what's become the only place of hope that you have for your team being able to do anything, because we've seen, 3-4 players who were former All-Stars and current All-Stars who have left to go join the Nets over the past couple months. Lamarcus Aldridge, it looked like he just retired,
he
actually.
He had a heart problem,
issue, but he was another one that joined Blake Griffin and some other guys who
you saw him
just stack them up. It's just, it becomes crazy. So,
and it's hard for a small market team like New Orleans to do that. It just is. Now, I will say this, Gail Benson's got deep pockets, okay? And she has already said, again, through David Griffin, they are committed when it's time to be able to, again, pay the luxury tax. It's the only way you win in the NBA now.
The only way.
Okay? Again, and of course, you look at being in a major market, that helps. Brooklyn is in New York. Okay, Los Angeles with the Clippers and the Lakers. So you have destination cities with these big cities. Is there a possibility we can see it in the San Antonio Spur run, a small market? Hard to fathom that now with the way the NBA is. But to your point, I agree. If you can keep Zion here, keep him happy, that's why I think you got to get in the playoffs this year. And you got to continue to get in the playoffs and continue to get better and build around him. See, the problem with the Pelicans is, and we talked about it on the radio show and on this program, is you started off in one direction this season, and then in the mid-season you decided, well, wait a minute, it's point Zion. So you were building toward Zion being a guy that was going to be in the post, guys surrounding him in the post, giving him the ball and letting him operate. Now he's going to be operating again with the ball, taking the ball up the court, and also disseminating your offense. So he's the main guy. So now you got to almost rebuild around him, maybe a little bit different than you were thinking you were going to do that. But they got two interesting things they got to deal with in the offseason. You did not trade Lonzo Ball, okay, which means to me, again, sign and trades don't work because you're usually getting somebody else's trash, okay? Or you're going to have to re-sign him now because you don't want to let him go for nothing. And then the other guy you got to re-sign to me is Josh Hart. He's been the heart and soul of this team, going forward. Now, again, you lose James Johnson's contract off the board. That's $16 million. Adams' contract diminishes $12 million this year, and then Bledsoe's contract goes to $18 million. But as I mentioned on both this show and the radio show, in 22-23, he's only guaranteed $3.9 million. So he is not a fit here right now. He doesn't look like he wants to be here. So maybe in the offseason you're able to offload him. But now you have to build around Zion maybe in a little different way than maybe you anticipated. Or as you brought him in.
And I think that's actually been a bit of the blessing in disguise of Lonzo being out. Is like, I think Sam Van Gundy at first, it's kind of like, okay, well, we've tried this point Zion thing. Let's just go all in and see what happens, because what do we have to lose right now? And I think it's led them to an epiphany where they're like, wow, this is really something that could be his future. But you're right, that is a difference of how you're going to build around him. But I think it's kind of been, you're molding this piece of clay that you're like, where does he fit? I mean, so everybody has an opinion of like where he should play, what he should do. People have called him, I think it was Rick Carlisle of Dallas called him Shaq with point guard skills. And I mean, I think that's a good analogy. But Yeah, the framework in which you're building this team looks different than it did at the beginning of the season around Zion, because he's playing literally positionless basketball, but someone who's going to play more on the outside, on the wings, than he is going to play down low. But I saw he had that baseline jumper that he showed off. It was a couple games ago. That was pretty scary, because if he adds that to his game, that's going to be incredible. At the same time, though, I've sat there and said that he can get to the cup anytime he wants to. So it's almost like, why settle for the jumper if you can get there that often?
But you have to have that in your repertoire.
But you have to have that in your repertoire.
And he's in the right spot, because we just got finished saying, you want to learn how to shoot? You come to New Orleans.
Right.
Okay, because they've helped. I mean, again, you look at the guys that have come through here, that they've helped with the shot. It's been incredible. So, again, I have no doubt in my mind that, again, he is going to develop another shot. He's already taken down the 3 last night. He'll develop the 3. Look, the way they're going to play is you don't want to fall in love with the 3, but look, he's going to get a lot of attention driving that lane. You got to have guys that can knock down shots. It's the problem we're seeing right now. They don't have the shooters to knock down the shots when he gets in trouble inside and he needs to kick.
Yeah, and that's really why I feel like it's unfortunate that Nikhil, because I feel like he was really getting on a roll, you know, all of a sudden gets hurt. Lonzo Ball's had his ups and downs, but his 3-point shot, it really has. I mean, it started off slow this year, but he's picked up, you know, around that about the quarter way mark of the season, where he picked up where he left off last year. I mean, that 3-point shot, what Fred Vincent has done with him, is really unbelievable. That guy's like the unsung hero of the whole Pelicans
let
team.
him go.
The fact that Stan Van Gundy kept him around was a very savvy move. I mean, that was one of the smartest moves he could make.
Well, I say this, there are 2 guys that are untouchable in this town right now. Jeff Ireland and Fred Vincent. No, that's really. You can't touch. Those guys can't go anywhere, okay? Because Fred Vincent has done a great job in terms of, again, turning around the shooting, and Jeff Ireland turned around the Saints with his drafting ability. So those are 2 guys you can't, again, they got to be New Orleanians. You pay them what you need to pay them to keep them here. Whatever you got to do. I want to shift to the college game, and you and I were discussing this before we came on the air. I don't know how many people realize this. There is a new transfer rule that's going into the NCAA for both football and basketball, men's and women's basketball and football. And it was a rule that, again, that applies to every other sport, but is not applied to those big sports. It's a transfer rule for football and basketball. It's a one-time exception rule. Starting in 2022, a player would be allowed to transfer one time without having to sit out a year and would be eligible to play immediately. Starting in 2022, players must notify their school by May 1st if you're in the fall or winter sports, or July 1st for the spring sports, on your intention to transfer. You can transfer at that point without any penalty, go to another school, even within your conference, and be able to play immediately. Also, again, for this year, we all know because of COVID restrictions, they've allowed players to be able to add another year or to be able to transfer. July 1st is the date for the intention to transfer date for this year. Also, the current dead period is ending on June 1st, which means that coaches can resume camps, official recruiting visits, and off-campus visits as well, which again is great for recruiting. Getting back to that, I don't like the rule. Okay, I'm old school. Call me a curmudgeon. That's all. I don't. I just feel like it's a commitment. You make the commitment. If ultimately you don't want to keep the commitment, there's got to be some penalty here. You can't have guys that don't win the starting job and then all of a sudden say, well, I'm going to start there. And that there might be your rival in your conference. I'd like to get your take.
I don't like the rule either. Look, I'm someone who went to Texas Tech. We just had our basketball coach, men's basketball coach, Chris Beard, leave and take a job at the University of Texas. And, immediately when that happened, because players play for coaches, they don't play for schools. As much as people want to believe they love LSU, they love Texas Tech.
It's all purple and gold now.
They're playing for the coach a lot of times. I mean, you will run into a player every once in a while who might have grown up in Baton Rouge or around the area and does like LSU. But a lot of times, if you're getting a kid from New York or Florida and they're coming to Baton Rouge, they don't love LSU. They love playing for Will Wade or Ogeron or whoever it is. So, I understand the balancing act of wanting to allow a player to be able to leave, but there's no protection for the program that is now going to be decimated. I mean, at Tech, when that happened, I think like 3/4 of their team the next day was entered in the transfer portal. And it's like, what are you supposed to do? And you're just hoping that in any situation, your school can come in and make the right hire in a short amount of time to be able to
salvage it,
able to salvage it and make these guys say, hey, we stick with us. You like me. We're going to do things similar to what was going on. So, I understand the grad transfer rule and whatnot, but what I dislike is the lack of protection for the program whatsoever. And what I also don't like is I don't like that coaches are able to leave, especially when they go in conference, and there's no penalty for them. They just get to leave. Yeah. These contracts don't mean anything. They just need somebody to buy them out. You sign a 5-year deal. Well, if somebody comes along that has a lot of money, they're paying your buyout, and you're going to go coach for somebody else.
Well, look, that happens with the buyouts all the time, right?
It happens all the time.
It's a formality.
Yeah.
At that point.
Right.
Okay. At that point, I'm with you. I don't like it. I think it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt programs because it doesn't make the kid have to stay and work. Okay, to try to compete for the job. At that point, again, you're going to have some guys are going to say, "Look, I'm staying." And I'm going to compete for that job. Look, you're one play away from getting in on that court or on the field. One play away. It's going to hurt depth. I don't mind the grad transfer rule because, again, you've played 3 or 4 years at a school and you're getting one more year. And again, teams can take advantage of that to plug holes. I mean, look at the transfer portal right now. Yeah. I mean, the transfer portal is overflowing in both basketball and football. There's not enough room for the number of players that are out there to be able to play on Division I teams. A lot of those guys now are going to end up in subdivisions, okay, or junior college when they were playing at top programs.
Yeah, and some of these schools, like if you talk to people over at Tulane and LSU and in different colleges, like they have analysts and different people that they hire. Like that's one of their jobs. Is literally you're watching the transfer portal all the time and getting in contact with these guys to try to pick them up because it has become a big part of the game that you have to be, looking under every rock everywhere because players are looking to leave. I understand a player wanting to leave if a coach leaves. Even though untenable. Even though right.
He's just not getting along, doesn't want to be there. Sure. I get all that.
But I think the problem with a lot of people, and I'm 30 years old, but my generation and kind of the generation below me, they have a lot of problems with being able to handle adversity. Anytime they're in a situation where they're not given something right away, they want to leave. Right. And they want to go somewhere else because everywhere is a greener pasture. That's just not always the case. So. Look, I don't know if there's a great answer to it, and maybe that's why the NCAA is going this direction. But it doesn't cover all the bases to protect everyone involved to where where they're not protected in being able to keep their program where it is.
Division I college football and basketball just became the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
It just has. I mean, again,
and I don't like the in-conference thing too. If you want to leave and you want to go to the Pac, if you're in the SEC, you want to go Pac-12, Big 12.
I got no problem.
Okay, fine.
But not
if you're going to a rival or something like that. That's where I think.
I mean, you're starting for LSU this year, and then all of a sudden next year you're going to play for Alabama next year. Come on,
I don't like that.
Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that.
And the time that you put in to develop that player too, and then now they're
and then all of a sudden again he knows your playbook. He knows. I mean, again, there's so many other variables to it. Yeah. On again, why you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about LSU. We got spring game on Saturday. It can be very, very vanilla. What are you looking for?
Quarterback competition first. Okay. I feel like people think from the outside that it's just between Max Johnson and TJ Finley, and it might be, but I feel like they keep forgetting about Miles Brennan. I don't know if you were able to read up on his injury that he had and how it was just very odd.
Yes.
Him tearing his abdominal. He went to go get a couple of different opinions on it, and I think both doctors had told him, like, we haven't really seen an abdominal tear this kind of way. But that's the first thing I'm looking at. I know TJ Finley said the other day that I know that they have a lot of unknown receivers, but TJ Finley feels like they have a lot of talent in that room.
Yes.
Keyshawn Boutte is going to be probably their top dog this upcoming year, but there's a lot of talent like right underneath him. So that's going to be what I have an eye on. And then more than anything, the defense was the worst part of that team last year. That's got to be something that they have to have fixed. So neither of their coordinators were necessarily their first options that they went after, and that's what Orgeron's dealing with this year. But he said that especially defensively, he's going to have more of a pulse on like what's going on.
Yes.
And this is a big year for him. This
Huge.
is a big. I mean, I know we're just a couple years removed from one of the best
What have you
college
done for
football
me
seasons
lately?
ever, but people can get upset pretty
Yes.
quickly, and that
As-
mood can change.
Especially with, again, all the outside noise right now with the sexual assault investigations,
Yeah.
the cover-up, the sexual harassment, that is a cloud over this program.
Yeah.
Recruiting violations in both football and basketball. Again, I think the leash is going to be short on all coaches
On all of
in
them,
Baton
yeah.
Rouge right now. Speaking of coaches, a lot of rumors out there. Willie Fritz on the very, very short list for Kansas. Your
Kansas, yeah.
thoughts?
Look, he's been a program builder, and Kansas, I believe, is like 30 miles away from where he went to high school.
Right.
I don't know how many family members he still has like up in that area, so that's something that I would be interested in. But man, I tell you what, Kansas has been a no-win situation for a long time, and you probably would get a little bit of a bump in pay raise, but personally, I think Tulane is a better job.
I do
and I
too.
think the American Athletic Conference is become very competitive. People, if you don't watch the American Athletic Conference, like they have some good players that play there, especially because of all these, the transfer leniency. Like a lot of these teams have a lot of players who were playing at big time schools who now have come in
Sure.
and are playing for some of these Power 6 teams. So I think that Willie Fritz, I don't know what he's going to do. I think that he would be best suited in staying here at Tulane. And I don't just say that because I think he's a great coach and he coaches here in New Orleans, but I think it's an uphill battle to try to win somewhere like Kansas. They just don't give you the financial money to be able to do great things with that program. Basketball is there. People are ready for basketball when it gets to September, year round.
Yeah.
So I think that's an uphill battle.
Right.
But we've seen any time that Missouri and those schools have come open, he's always linked to it.
But Missouri and Arkansas were better jobs than Kansas.
Well, better jobs in Kansas.
Right, and you've built something now. You're on the cusp of, again, taking that next step with this program. You're 61 years old. Do you really want to uproot the family, go back to Kansas, if that's where you want to go, and then, again, get into that program? So I'm with you. I think the best for Willie Fritz in the short term, and maybe, again, for the rest of his career, is making this university a winner, because you're this close. You're
right
this
there.
close.
He's right there. And now you got a quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, you feel like it.
Right.
At least Michael Pratt was pretty good for them last year. So that's been something he really hasn't ever had since he's been here. I mean, you go to Keon Howard was not that great last year. Couple years back, Jonathan Banks, pretty average. Who else did you have? You had right in between.
Well, no matter
I can't
what.
think of his name right now, but Justin McMillan.
Right, McMillan, right.
He was okay. So, but if you get a quarterback, that can change a lot of things.
Well, that, and of course he's got Ibietta as well. So he's really got two quarterbacks that are two young quarterbacks that he can build around. So now we'll see how it plays out. I don't anticipate it, but who knows at this point.
And Ibietta looked pretty good in their spring game.
That's what I understand.
He
definitely did. Andrew Doak, thanks so much for being with us.
got it, man.
Certainly appreciate it. Andrew Doak of Channel 4 Sports here in New Orleans. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's plenty of ways to catch this program now. We have so many rebroadcasts. Let me run through them for you. 6 p.m. tonight on WLAE-TV. 10 p.m. on the Deuce, WLAE-TV. That's every Thursday. Remember, we're live streaming at 1 o'clock, along with being live here on WLAE-TV. On Friday night, 9 o'clock Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock WLE, 2 a.m. on the Deuce, Saturday morning, 5 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television on Saturday afternoon. Always at ericasher.com, always on the WLAE-TV YouTube page. And, of course, we invite you to check us out on our social media platforms as well. You catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM, Nash Icon. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. Listen live, download the podcast, ericasher.com. Our main podcasting platform is Anchor, but we're on all the major podcasting platforms. And, of course, we post our program on our social media platforms at Eric_Asher on Twitter and Eric Asher on Facebook. Want a special thanks to our underwriters who make this show possible. Please support our underwriters. Thanks to them. Thanks so much again to the WLA production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy Fairley, Tommy O'Connor, Will Ingram, and my director, William Hill. For Andrew Doak, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks for Andrew's time today. We'll see you next week. Mike DeChilia will join us next week on the show. We'll be talking draft. You've been watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Have a great week.